Good day, everybody. We're going to get into a little bit of Santa Clarita real estate and then also talk about something that I think buyers and sellers missed out on when it comes to, on one end of it, hiring a real estate agent and trying to figure out what exactly is it they do. And also on the buyer's end, I think that's also a valid question that people should be asking. We'll get into that, but let's get into the numbers right now. So 700 total active listings all across Santa Clarita Valley. So that's going to include the cities of Canyon Country, Castaic, Saugus, Newhall, and then Stevenson Ranch, Valencia, Acton, and Agua Dulce. So that's total active real estate listings. Also within that, there's going to be coming soon of 12. So really, where is that? 678 as far as total active listings on the market. And that number's fluctuated over the last few months. In fact, it's climbed almost 200 over the last 2 months. So back in the end of about mid-March, end of March, we were looking somewhere in the 520s, 530s. And now we boasted up to 700 or plus yesterday. We had quite a few properties enter escrow here in the last 24 hours as well. Let me give you these other numbers. So we have 12 coming soon. 84 new listings have been posted onto the market in this past 7 days. Price changes 78. 25 properties have entered back on the market. We have 30 properties that have gone active under contract, 58 pending, 52 closed. So if you look, there's about a difference of 32. 32 properties actually sold and closed escrow. 84 properties have been listed on the market for sale. If that trend continues, we're going to see inventory continue to go higher. And then we're going to see if the buyer drive doesn't also increase in that same adjustment cycle, we're probably going to see a downturn in real estate sales prices. It's just going to depend on how long this trend is going to continue. Also, various economic factors in the U.S. are affecting this as well. The first primary one, of course, would be interest rates for real estate buyers. Whenever those interest rates go up, and the interest rates go up when there's less confidence in the 10-year bond market, when the economy is wonderful and lovely, and right now it's being held tech heavy by the AI industries out there. Most of the top end of the stock market is all dependent on artificial intelligence technology, which, I mean, it's an exponential, right? That arrow, you have your basic working through of life, and then all of a sudden you start to go completely straight up. In fact, I have something of a graph behind me that you can actually see in the reflection of the TV. I didn't turn it on for the show this morning. But what happens is you'll see that this exponential, it starts to go completely up. And that's where we're watching artificial intelligence potentially. It's doing that for sure. How long is it going to do that? Don't know. And then what problems is it going to solve that are going to actually help us or harm us? And I say that because it's interesting. If you look at cancer and all of the money associated with the trying to cure it, right, in the human world, chemotherapy. And I've had very, very close people to me, family members, relatives, those that are very, very close, go through this entire industry from beginning to end of life. I've had people that have survived it through this industry as well. But, they always tell you, it always come back, you want to get checked off it and these other things. So all of that process is worth a lot of money. It's a sad way to categorize it in that form, but there's a lot of money for all these industries. What if it's completely solved and fixed by artificial intelligence? What if they come with a cure? What happens to those industries? Will they completely collapse? What happens to the economy? Probably follow suit. So although this is a really good thing for the human beings out there, nobody's positioning it where, okay, we need to restructure this so if we do solve it, it's not going to completely cripple the economy. I know I totally went out on the weeds on this, but this is something to look at. So we have price changes 78, back on market 25. Talked about active under contract properties. These are properties that have been listed for sale and they went from that into escrow. Pending 58. So I talked about 52 closed, 7 expired, 16 canceled, 14 have been put on hold. The whole status. So if you're looking and you see something on the internet of a listing that's for sale that you're very excited about, and then within a few hours later, before you've even had a chance to call anybody and make an inquiry, it disappears, then that's more than likely the property's been put on hold. It hasn't sold. A hold could be used for various reasons. Most cases, the perfect scenario is going to be something happened. Maybe there's been something going on. Maybe somebody has COVID, for example. Somebody got sick. It can't be shown right now because of maybe they had some kind of a a bad issue in the residence that requires some kind of a technician, it'd be unsafe for buyers to look at. The wrong way to use that would be if they've had a lot of offers, a lot of activity, and they just want to try to regroup. Regrouping is not a good excuse for hold status. So if you see something that exists in that realm, you call up your agent and say, hey, follow up with the listing agent and find out what this hold thing means. If it means that, oh, we've gotten a lot of offers, the seller doesn't want to look at it anymore. Well, I'm sorry what the seller wants, that's fine, but I can't take your word on that. I'm still going to submit an offer to you, and you let those cards fall where they may, because my buyer has a right, like every other buyer, as long as that window's open, to submit an offer. Now, if the seller comes back and says, we're not going to entertain any more offers, and they put that in writing, well, then you have to take it up on that end of it. But other than that, an agent saying, oh, it's been overwhelming, I'm so busy, I don't know what I'm going to do, there's so many offers, that's just, that doesn't work. And your agent should have the wherewithal to push to make sure that your offer gets submitted, so it does get its fair day in review from the seller. And it can be one of those that's responded to if, in fact, it's of such quality that the seller would respond to it. All of these things should be sent over to the seller, unless the seller has done a written explanation of what they deem to be a frivolous offer. And we see this. I'll list a property, and within 24 hours, I get offers for $200,000 and $300,000 less by these investment companies. Apparently, they're just hoping that the seller is going to have some kind of a mental breakdown and just agree to some price. But we usually establish during the listing agreement what frivolous actually means. And I'm not talking about a $300,000 overpriced listing. I'm talking about a listing that's priced right at market value, where it needs to be, either above or below market value, depending on the trend of the market and depending on what our ultimate goal happens to be. Is it a fast sale? Is it, a hold and list sale? What is the type of strategy? Then at that point, we have that property put on the market, in very short order, I get these offers that are, considerably lower, not just a little bit, not 10 or 12,000. That might be something that could work out depending on the listing price, depending on how we structure the sale and how we want it to happen. But going back, $200,000 and $300,000. So these are companies that are completely automated, real estate agents, and I've seen various brands on that. And you call me, I'll tell you exactly which ones, but so they send these offers out and they're all automated. No, there's nobody there. And in fact, the very first time it caught me off guard, because everything's legit all the way beginning, buyer, end. It's being purchased by an LLC, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's actually a real estate agent with a real estate broker with a real estate license number, both the broker and the agents. So perfect, right? So what I do is I go through and I do what I do with every listing, and I start to make the calls when nobody answers the phone. Then I'll send a text message. Well, nobody answers the text message. And of course, those are great, but email is really that written record. So I send an email. And after we've already gotten into escrow with somebody else and so on, and then I'll reach out later and say, oh, is the property still available? I'm like, Jack, I'm not sure what kind of business you're running. Now, does it work for these people? I don't think so. But maybe it's something they're selling their investment companies, that they're hard at work trying to represent their desires and their wants. I don't know. I'm not sure how, but anyway, that's how that process works. So if you're a seller and you don't put into play what exactly a frivolous offer is going to be when you get your home listed, be prepared to be disappointed and irritated if you're going to let the emotional component grab onto you. Real estate should be business. It's a business transaction. If somebody says that your house sucks, again, that's an opinion. A lot of people said I sucked when I was in uniform. They didn't know Connor. They don't know you either. They're just looking at the house, and that's an opinion. An opinion are like another body part that we all excrete things from. So don't take offense. It should be a transactional view, and it should be without emotion, the best you can. And it's just you wanting to get what you need out of the residence, and then the buyer being able to purchase it. And I understand you've hung emotional attachment to the residence, especially when I'm dealing with folks that are retiring. They've raised a whole family there, so they have all those beautiful little connections of all the memories that they've generated from being in the house and raising all the kids and all the trauma and the love and the fun and the sadness and all that stuff. So then breaking away, cutting clean emotionally is a little bit difficult. You need a good advisor that's going to sit there and remind you that we're here in a business transaction. It's your job, and this is the warning to the seller, it's your job to try to separate yourself. Now, when you have a buyer that's trying to extort money via contract, maybe waiting a little bit longer to get the repair request put together. And then when they do, they're springing on you some massive amount of money that has no proper existence in the real world, but it's completely fantasy driven. And you know that maybe the market is such that you were very happy to get this one offer because, well, maybe there's just not that many buyers looking for your type of residence in a particular market. So they feel like they have you by the short hairs and that they're going to use that leverage and try to get you to get that price to be lowered, even though the inspection report and what they know about the residents or what has become known isn't really enough to drive this kind of a price reduction. That needs to be stepped into. Now, again, emotionally, yeah, that sucks. And it's horrible that people would try to, come undercut you, knowing that, maybe somebody in your residence, when they were showing the open house, or somebody was seeing it, or maybe they saw some kind of evidence, or learned maybe by a neighbor if they were doing their door knocking at the neighbor's residences to see how the neighborhood is, because that's something that buyers do and can do and probably should do. So that's your buyer tip. Make sure you investigate the other residences, but maybe they found out that you're already in escrow on another house somewhere that you didn't want them privy to. And they're using that as leverage, saying, oh my God, they got a house in Nantucket that they're trying to close, and they need to sell this one. They're already in escrow on that. You'd be surprised what neighbors will say when you share it with them, when buyers come knock on the door. Oh, you didn't know Stacy was selling and bought a house in Nantucket. Boy, they got to get this one sold quick. And then, of course, in some cases, some buyers start to salivate, and they say, oh my God, we're going to really hit them hard when this request for repair things come. Watch out. Don't be emotional. And ultimately, if it doesn't make sense to you, and you can be negotiable or not, you can have a hard line in the sand or not, but try not to drive yourself to have that cortisol spike and feel all that stress. Try to keep it as calm as possible. You're going to have the cortisol spike. You're going to have stress, both the buyer and the seller end of it. The buyer might believe they're completely within their right to ask for this. Maybe they're not stacking it with the information that they heard from the neighbor. Maybe they're not trying to dial it up and play that game. And that's great if they're not. And maybe they really believe they should get this money out of it. Maybe they have a relative, a close friend, somebody that told them, oh, well, when I bought my house, this is how it happened. And I was able to get, an extra $50,000 from my seller. So maybe that's in the back of their mind doing at them. Well, I'm going to try to get an extra 50 so I can, show off to so-and-so. And people make decisions based on showing off to so-and-so. It happens all the time. Same thing on the seller's end. Well, I'm going to hold out because so-and-so held out and so-and-so got what they wanted. Well, so-and-so, the issue is you're not so-and-so. You're you. And maturity is probably going to win. But I get the fun in playing a little bit too. But sometimes you play too long, you lose. And sometimes you play too hard, you lose. And sometimes even when you play fairly, you lose because the buyer just lost all interest in the residence at some particular point for some particular reason. So you can't beat yourself up over that. And that works on the other side of it as well. Real estate's a very interesting card game, if you will. Both parties want everything they want. And in some cases, both parties go through the same agent. That's baffling to me because it doesn't make sense when you're trying to get what you want. When you have the one mediator in there that both depended on making money, making a living, making a commission from both ends of it, trying to negotiate a process where they have vested interest in each side. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. That's dual agency, completely legal in California, endorsed by various legal firms and individuals out here. So it's not anything bad as far as legal goes. I just can't see that representation model being the best model. Having somebody on your side 100% with no ties to the buyer, and then having somebody on the buyer side 100% no ties to seller. That's why I brought in sellersonlyagent.com. So there's the plug. Hope you're well. Thanks for watching sellersonlyagent.com, and you'll see what that's about. I'm Connor with Honor. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and that's your real estate update here for Santa Clarita, California. I have to say it like that because when they put the transcriptions in, it puts Clara. Ha! Talk to you soon. Be safe.